Welcome to another episode of Mindful City, Tuning into Life, a podcast that brings you an intimate exploration of the businesses, practitioners, and artists making an impact in our community. Join us on Patreon for an exploration of all the people, places, and things that raise consciousness in our community by telling us about the businesses and happenings you'd like to know more about, and we'll explore them for you.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Mindful City, Tuning into Life. My name is Heather Grutzmacher, joining with my co-host, Helen, and Becky Sheehan is our special guest today. She is what I like to consider a sister. She has a beautiful mastery in human design, an advocate, mother, 5 children, wife, daughter, and a beloved Theta healer as well. Someone who is a singer, performer, and self-compassion, and what I like to call, and I would think she would agree with me, self-described, someone who loves conversations about radical self-confidence and self-love. Welcome to the show, Becky. How are you today? Lovely.
I'm well. Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction.
Welcome, Becky. I've been saying this on each episode now because anytime someone comes on to the show, it's almost perfect timing. It's always what's going on in my life, and somehow the right person appears. And I've just always been a naturally curious person. So when the curiosity arises at the right time and the right person's there, I think it's really amazing, the conversations that come out. So I'm so happy that you're here. And, Heather mentioned human design, and that's actually something that I haven't dove in that much, even with all the world. I've been exposed quite a few times, but really that connection of human design, and I don't know the background at all. But when I think of the word alone, and I think of how we design our life, how did you get into human design, and what does it mean for you?
Oh, wow. What an amazing question. I can't believe you haven't delved in. We have to do something about that, Helen.
Let's do it right now.
So how did I come to human design? I have this amazing friend. She's an author. She wrote a book about happiness, the art of happiness. I need to figure out what the name is. It'll come to me. I apologize. But her name is Donna Jane Serlin. And so she mentioned one day in a casual conversation on the telephone, she's like, well, what's your human design? And I'm like, I don't know that. I don't know what that is. And she's like, oh, you need to figure that out. It's amazing. Go check that out. And, again, I, like you, have this amazing form of curiosity, right? So I went in, I ran the human design chart. It made absolutely no sense to me. I said, okay, what am I supposed to do with this? And she's like, oh, there's books out there. She's like, I don't really know that much, that much about it myself to explain it, but go find some books out there and so on and so forth. So I did. And I read some books about it and still didn't help me. It just did not sort of translate to my being. And I pushed it aside. I'm a highly intuitive person. A lot of the energy healing modalities that I'm certified in involve a great deal of intuition. So I'm very well rooted in my intuition. And this voice kept on telling me, pick it up, look at it again, look at it again. It kept on coming back to me again and again. So I picked it up and I started to really immerse myself in it. I read so many books, so many amazing books, and I was fascinated by it, but there were still these points of disconnection. And then I gave myself this beautiful permission to be able to sort of translate it into a way that I understood. I am an emotional learner. This is something that I've grown to learn about myself, and I need an emotional connection to something in order for me to really grasp it. And so I gave myself the permission to allow myself to, create an emotional connection to what the information was and sort of translate it in a way that I innately understood. And so when I allowed myself to do that, I created a lot of, points of connection, metaphors, what have you. And then I would go back to like all the books, the textbooks, what have you, that I have on human design to make sure that it fit appropriately. Because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, got that logical brain circuitry going on here, and so I wanted to make sure that my understanding was honoring the actual work itself. And I started to realize like all these points of connection were being made. And all of a sudden, it was a light bulb moment. And then I was able to sort of like decipher human design in a really powerful way. I then went on to study with Karen Curry Parker, and I got my certifications as a human design specialist through her. And I also was able to certify myself as a quantum human design family coach, which allows for me to be able to work with individual families, um, and really, doing human design for the parents and to all the children. And then being able to look at each individual family member's unique human design and explain it in a way that would allow parents to not only understand their child and their, partner or their spouse in a way that maybe they've never been able to understand them before, but to celebrate each individual person and to really be able to know, like, how do I best support them? How do I best uplift them? How do I instill with them as like a tremendous sense of self-worth and self-love? Because if you can do that with a child very early on, like I think about that myself. I'm like, if my parents had really took the time to or had the tools, I should say, to
Yeah.
understand me and
Mhm.
understand my unique way of interacting with the world and my unique way of creating in the world, and were able to support me and to uplift me and instill a sense of self-love and self-worth in me. I mean, I would have met the world in a whole different way. And,
Mhm.
you know, so much of my journey into adulthood had been spent healing the wounds of my childhood and the wounds of my early adulthood. And I spent so much time, and I'm grateful I spent so much time doing that. But if I had that at the get-go, then I could have
Mhm.
hit like, my adulthood running
Right.
and creating and knowing how to just, have fun, really
Mhm.
creating and experiencing life in a way that best aligned with me. So that's what I try to
Is
do.
design, when you are explaining a little bit design, because even though I've been exposed to it, I by no means know much about it. But what it's sounding like, from my own Ayurvedic perspective, it's sounding like a little bit dosha, like understanding kind of like your makeup, your mind, body, understanding, or like categorizing the types of beings that we are. Because based on what you're saying, that's a big part of when we understand what our makeup is, then we understand how we absorb and view the world, perceive the world. And then from there, we can design. Is it something to that effect, like
Similar.
categorizations?
Yes. So what I would say is, human design, really pulls from a lot of ancient wisdoms that have been around forever. It pulls from the I Ching, it pulls from the chakra system, it pulls from astrology, it pulls um, from Kabbalah, it pulls from all these ancient wisdoms and sort of puts everything together in this really beautiful picture.
Mm.
And basically, what you do as you learn your own human design and you go through a human design reading and learn about yourself is that you're able to see that you were made to be, a very unique, distinctive individual, and that you truly are, as Karen Curry Parker likes to say, a once in a lifetime cosmic event in this
Mhm.
world. And that's what you came here to be in this world. And so your human design chart, which is just like it's a body graph, it has like
Okay.
centers in it that sort of resemble the chakra system, but that has a few added more centers to it. They're all energy centers. They all have different themes. They all have different gates.
Mm.
It would take a lot to unpack the science behind it, but essentially, you have these gifts that you were given in this life experience. You have these tools and you have these lessons that your soul and your being came here to learn,
Mhm.
to really level up, right? To level up in your experience. And so human design is like getting a map of your blueprint. And it's
Mhm.
saying, like, this is your blueprint. This is all the tools that you have. Here's your talents. Here's what you came here to learn. Here's what your life purpose is. Here's everything right here. And you
Yeah.
have all the information and clarity that you're just sort of like, oh, okay, so this is what I'm working with. And it
Mhm.
also gives you the insight and supports you in how to best use those things, use your tools, use your gifts, use your awareness, use those, even the life lessons that you came here to learn, to use it to your advantage so that you can really be your highest, truest, and best form of self, and to create with joy and ease, and to live this life experience from the sense of joy and ease. I mean, who doesn't want that?
Becky, I am so grateful that you said yes to doing this podcast after just being in this moment together with the three of us. You said two things. You said I'm an emotional learner, and you also said we're designed to be a once in a lifetime cosmic event, and we're meant to be here to level up. So, where do you see yourself based off of where you are now versus, maybe who you were the last, like, go a lily pad back? And I think I met you on the last lily pad. We met each other on the last lily pad, and now we're on the next level of the video game, as we like to
Yeah.
say. So maybe share a little bit, some of your growth and experience, and maybe share, I know you and Rhiannon, who we had on our last show, are holding space for adults in this wisdom. You guys have a call, you meet every week and celebrate. I'd love to celebrate and hear more about your level up.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. You met me on the cleanup crew from like my last my last lessons. I was cleaning up stuff and I totally leveled up in a different way. So thank you for acknowledging that. That makes me very happy. Um, I would say that, I had a very trauma-filled childhood in a very loving home. The trauma really didn't come from my parents or my home experience. It came from the outside world. And it was very hard for me to make sense of that or understand why I was experiencing both. Like, how can I experience as a child both tremendous trauma and a loving and supporting a home environment? Like, that didn't sort of reconcile with me. Um, I was the baby of the family, and I was filled with questions that weren't always easy to answer. And so a lot of my questions went unanswered. And, naturally, what ends up happening as a kid is when you don't get the answers that you receive, you create a story that most makes sense with what you know,
Mhm.
to sort of like fill in the gaps. And so I became a very brilliant story creator early on in my life because I wasn't getting a lot of information. So I created stories that made sense to me. And a lot of those stories centered around the fact that I was the problem, that there was something about me that was in an invitation for all this trauma, that there was something that I was doing that was incorrect and I wasn't doing something appropriately. And that, it was, innately my responsibility or my fault that I was experiencing what I was experiencing. And with nobody else to sort of who really knew that I was creating these stories. So there was nobody to sort of shift my mindset and give me something different to operate from. I continued to build this. And then, as I got into my teenhood, as I got into young adulthood, you're experiencing with a lot. And I experienced a great deal more trauma in my young adulthood. And then I became a mother, very, very young, just as I was 21 when I became pregnant. Maybe that's not so young, but for me, I felt like, incredibly young. Wasn't prepared for it. I was just ready to burst out of my life and to do theater and drama and music. And I had big, big dreams. And I was sort of met with a different sort of reality. And I had to, adjust and shift. And again, I used those old stories that I had to sort of make sense about why this was, my life was unfolding the way that it was. And it was me, me, me. And I can tell you, I lived with that for decades. I lived with that for decades. And I went through so much therapy to really unpack that. All these different treatments, all these different modalities that I sort of looked at and considered, and nothing really seemed to create any long-lasting effects for me. I will say EMDR did wonders with a lot of the trauma, but not so much with the stories that I was creating about my own sense of self. And I remember one day I was looking, I read so many books on self-love. And I'm like, I love myself. Loving myself isn't the problem. And I was like, I read books about self-worth. And I'm like, I know I'm worthy. Like, I know that I'm really worthy of all this stuff. Doesn't feel like the problem either. What I recognized was this concept that Dr. Kristen Neff brought in, which was self-compassion. And I was like, wow, I'm not compassionate with myself at all. I'm beating myself up for the way that my life has turned out. I'm beating myself up for not being perfect. I'm beating myself up for not measuring up to the world around me. I'm beating myself up from everything that makes me different. I'm beating myself up. I'm beating myself up. And I started to look at self-compassion work. And that was my first big shift, was when I started to offer myself the grace that I gave so freely to other people.
I was wondering what shifted that mindset for you, into that direction. And where did that shift come in that gave you the confidence and the passion to use these tools for others coming from the place that you had been coming from?
Yeah, it was always so easy for me to be with others, to offer love and compassion and support. That was just the being that I was. But to offer myself that was really new for me. And I began to start to unpack that. Along the way, I began to come up with I began to learn and train in different modalities, like Theta healing I'm a advanced certified Theta healer. Access consciousness is another one that had to do with belief work, right? And all these are energy healings, and they also really target in on your belief work. And so I started to let go of a lot of the stories that I had and to create stories that actually honored me more and that served me more in what it was that I was here to do. And so that was another big shift for me, was then to sort of do a lot of that belief work. But what really brought everything home for me together was human design, where I was able to see myself. And when you do human design, it's very exposing. Like, you're sitting there like, how do you know so much detailed information about me, and you've never met me before, and you're telling me that this little map is telling you all these things about me? And it does. It like exposes you in such a profound way. But it was beautiful because for me, even like as it exposed all like areas of struggle and different weaknesses and things that I had problems with, and it's putting it all out there. It also told me, you're perfect. You're exactly who you were meant to be. Everything that you're experiencing, even this hardship, you are meant to go through this. You are perfect in your creation. And the only thing that you need to do is to understand that where you are in some areas is not where you're meant to stay or be. And there's a way to transcend that. And it gives you those ways to transcend that. And so that your experience is not in those lower vibrations. Your experience now gets shifted to those higher vibrations. And you can just operate from this sense of confidence and total self-love. Radical self-love is what I love to say. I heard that term once and I loved it. It was like radical self-love. And you're able to then, with this sort of revelation within yourself, you're able then to meet other people and understand, oh, look at that unique, beautiful human being. And you're able to hold space for them more and be more tolerant and be more patient and less judgmental because you understand that they're this beautiful, miraculous, unique individual themselves. And you have the opportunity to accept them and embrace them exactly as they are. And in that space, you shift the consciousness of that room, right? You shift that energy. And what would it take if we all began to embrace ourselves in this way that we are then can embrace other people with that same acceptance and that same compassion and lack of judgment that this energy consciousness just begins to wave out and expound, and we shift the vibration of the earth, we shift the vibration of consciousness this way. And so I look at myself in the work that I'm doing here as this, beautiful gift and this opportunity that I get to be a part of that. I get to be a part of that.
I'm curious in those that you work with in coaching and guidance, what is one thing that you find that's holding us from making that step forward in really that self-love and that, um, coming to understand ourselves? Like what's holding us? Because you've worked with a lot. What is the one thing that you notice that's not, and especially now, it's so needed, but what's holding us from making that step towards that type of healing and transformation?
That's a beautiful question. For me, what I would say is that we are all conditioned to work from logic and from our head. And that's not how we're meant to design to be in this life. Our head is a tool, our knowledge, our logic centers, how we process information, how we take in information. It's all very amazing. It's this amazing, powerful tool, but it's a tool. It's not your operations center. It's not where you're supposed to, draw everything from. It's not the place that you're supposed to make choices and decisions in your life. It's something that you consult and can contribute information. But, your being, your true sense of being and human design, each person's, people are different. Where they're meant to operate from is unique and different. For me, it's my sacral, it's my gut instincts, and it's my emotions. And so those are the things that help me make decisions that honor me. And when I allow myself to stop getting in my head and logically thinking and putting together things and making decisions based from a logical place, and I allow myself to connect with my actual life essence and my intuition and to really listen to what I'm being told and what honors me, and I make decisions from that place, that's where all the, profound transformation takes place. But a lot of people, and it's understandable, like, the value of education, the value of critical thinking, the value of all this other stuff, we're consistently told, like, use your head, or think about this. You need to think and consider this. And that I feel is, out of alignment. It's a tool to consult, but it's not meant to have a final say in your life. And it's not meant to be the space that you live from. And I think that once we can really understand that and get out of our heads and into our being, into the heart, into the core of who we are, that's where we're able to make these radical transformations.
Becky, if you could give us one piece of advice, if someone calls you and they're kind of stuck and not in self-love, or their kid's frustrated, or they're like, what do I want to do with my life? I have a job change. Like, what's one little nugget that you could give them, like a quick tip, some advice?
Um,
A little
okay.
pattern interrupt.
A little pattern.
Like a Becky pattern interrupt.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to assume that they know their human design, or else my answer would be completely different. So if this is somebody that's just coming right off the cuff, and they're trying to make a major decision in their life, or they're trying to really figure out what's right for them and what's not, I would draw on a beautiful access consciousness tool of, is this light or heavy for you? And what that tool happens to look like is, if you speak the words out loud, if you close your eyes and speak the word out loud, like light, light, there's almost something that lifts up within you. Your energy, you can feel your energy lift up, right? And if you say heavy, you almost feel like this gravitational pull downwards from your energy, right? And this is a way to consult your actual energy. What's light for you is meant for you. What's light for you is sort of like your litmus yes, right? What's light is ease, it's joy. And remember, life should be easy and full of joy. That's not meant to say that you're not going to meet challenges. It's not to say that there's not going to be work involved. We complicate things way more than they need to be. And when we're in our own energy and honoring our own energy and listening to ourselves, we're able to sort of know which is the way to go and which is the way not to go. So, great instantaneous way to make decisions and choices. Is this light or heavy to me? Does this feel light or heavy to me? And you usually get
this
that.
weekend. I'm using that this weekend. Can I take that with me? Oh my.
Yes, it's an amazing tool. And if it feels heavy, then it's not for you. But I do want to say one caveat, okay? It's not for you in that moment. Because who knows what might shift and change from moment to moment. In that moment, in that circumstances, given that resource, given with what you had in your day, given with your energy supply, all these other things sort of weigh in, right? In that moment, that's not right for you. But keep on checking in. Maybe tomorrow, maybe you feel something different. Maybe something shifted and changed, and now it's a new opportunity. So no is never a finite answer. No is a very conditional answer, right? It's based on the conditions and the current circumstances. And I think that's really something beautiful and profound to remember, is that no is not finite. And so what might be a no for you today might shift and change tomorrow. And it's always good to keep on checking back in with yourself to see where you're at.
Thank you so much, Becky, for all these gems that you've shared with us today. And it only tells me that we have to bring you back on so we can dive a little deeper and learn a little more about that. But I also wanted to share with everyone about the Empower Hour that you are doing with Rihanna. And that's just incredible. A free call that you do Monday through Friday. And we'll share with everyone the information. But just having a community, having those that are there to guide you in the moments that you feel you need it, and that those that are in tune with what those needs are. It's really incredible that you all are putting that together.
And as Helen said, I would love to invite everybody listening to come to our call, the Empower Hour, that I do with the beautiful and wonderful Rhiannon Murphy. And it's a beautiful community of people that, are all on the journey to really elevate to their highest sense of self and their sense of being. And I think it's important to have communities like this where you can come and, it's a safe space that you can come and you can be honest and you can be vulnerable about the journey and recognize and realize that you're not alone in the process. And I think that in this world today, that's something really important to remember, because, social media, everybody's putting their best face forward. And even with, the self-help and a lot of coaches and people, they all come across like, I have it all figured out and it's perfect. And the reality is that we're human beings. And there are things, that we need to be a little bit more honest about, that we're all in a journey of elevation. And there's always places and opportunities for us to learn, grow, and level up. And the Empower Hour is that beautiful stepping stone. It is completely free call, Monday through Fridays from noon to 1 on the Eastern Standard Time, that you can go and ask questions and learn tools and be supported and know that you're doing this together with beautiful, beautiful human beings and people. So thank you so much for having me on. I can't tell you how grateful I am.
She is definitely someone who 1 episode, 10 episodes, her own show eventually for sure.
Yes,
And
yes.